Hey everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And in this episode we're going to talk about the new Ivan Reitman film, No Strings Attached, and Mike Leigh's Another Year, and then we're going to do our picks of the week. And unless you can think of anything else, John?
No. Oh yeah, I do. I had some. Last week we did talk a little bit about Enter the Void.
Oh, right.
You'd only seen half of it. By now you've experienced the full thing. It does come out on it comes out on DVD Tuesday, the director's cut. So I'm curious, how was the whole experience of seeing it?
Oh my God. Okay, so what? I saw like the first 45 minutes. And before I get into that, I want to say we were recording live at Panera Bread, so there's all this ambiance. And last week we recorded at Trident.
There was too much ambiance.
It was just too much, with all the, we're trying to find a convenient way to record here, edit and record and keep the sound, just like you heard, the sound's down. But anyway, hopefully this podcast will come out better than the last one in terms of ambiance. You just can't control some things unless we go back into the studio.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right, so tell me, when you saw the first part of Enter the Void, you were pretty psyched. You liked the point of view, camera
I loved
work,
it.
you liked
dreamy
everything. So
Hypnotic.
now you saw it gets a little intense, shall we say?
Well, it continued that way. I was spellbound by this movie, and then it became disinteresting in about perhaps the last half hour. And it's not that it wasn't a technical marvel. It was, but it's a self-indulgent movie, and the director stays in this mode for such a long time. He asks us to keep our interests in sort of this, dour way, and he lost me. And he lost, the group that we were watching kind of lost interest about maybe, I don't know, we were in and out, about half hour left, and then they went to the Love Hotel.
Yeah. You talk about point of view. That final shot, the point of view on that final shot, I don't know how they got the camera in there.
Unbelievable. So what happened was we periodically have these viewing parties over at David Filer's place. We show the film. So I showed Enter the Void over there, and it was in front of a group of cinephiles, and we knew what we were getting into. But when it got into the last half hour, and we watched that, and it was just so graphic. David said, I have, in all my 70 years, I have never seen that before. And when you see the movie, you'll know which shot or couple of shots we're talking about. It's holy...
Point of view from inside a woman's reproductive parts during intercourse. And that's about as nicely as I can put it.
The things that you can use, put CGI to use for. But we were a bit traumatized.
Yeah, it's
great film though.
It's worth seeing, but it's all over the map. Well, did you see his last movie?
I did not.
Intrusion, Invention, Despicable. I don't know what I can't remember the name, but it was equally. There were scenes in that were equally appalling.
So I should have seen it coming.
Yeah, you can't.
Kind of did.
There's no way you could tell where that, because of the hypnotic way the camera works. You kind of lull along, and then you see something you wish you hadn't.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's kind of what happened. And then there was these other scenes with the car accident that were just traumatic in their own way.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Oh yeah.
But I do highly recommend it from a creative standpoint.
It comes out on DVD Tuesday, so I'd be curious to see what the response was of the Brattle, if it was a big hit for them or not. It was playing in repertory with a documentary about
I don't know.
Spalding Gray.
Oh, right.
Sean had on his list of best movies for the year, but anyway,
talking about the Brattle, the Boston Society of Film Critics is having their third annual awards ceremony next Sunday. I think it's the 30th. Sunday, January 30th, and tickets are $25 for the reception and screening, or I think you can just do $15 and see the film. But they're going to be honoring Jeff Malmberg, the guy who made Marwen Call. And so they're going to be showing Marwen Call, and then Frederick Weissman is going to be honored, and he's Who is Frederick Reisman? He is.
I'm sorry, did I stutter?
Documentary filmmaker. Very well-respected documentarian who made Titicut Follies in the 60s. You might have seen La Dange, remember? One of my top 10 films of last year.
Yes, well, I did see, and I saw Titicut Follies, too, actually.
Yeah.
Not because of the name.
Well, they're doing a retrospective of his work at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, I think all through January.
Okay.
Maybe longer, I don't know. He has a new book on his films that has come out, and I'm very eager to see it. He's a Cambridge native. He's related to my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Now we know he's getting the plug, and why he gave me that look when I asked who he was.
He's a masterful filmmaker. I mean, this isn't me talking. This isn't me, Steve. This
boyfriend of Sarah talking.
Boyfriend of Sarah talking. This is we all have our relation, related things. I'm related to Edith Head and Richard Rogers. But Sarah has Frederick Weissman.
See?
So
nobody.
No, John.
I'll dream one up.
You have somebody.
I'll find some silent movie star you can't find.
Somebody.
He's my uncle.
Somebody. So he hopefully will be there, and I did not see Boxing Gym. I've been really eager to see that. And anyway, the event takes place next week at the Brattle, and so do go. Last year was fantastic.
You actually filmed some last year, didn't you?
Yeah. Jeremy Renner, and they had a special award for Julia Child, her
publicist, the editor, right? The editor?
Yeah. So,
the editor of The Art of French Cooking.
And they do a good job. I mean, it's a very film-friendly, lots of intelligent conversation, which is always one of the great things about being around film critics is the level of discussion about movies.
Sometimes. Listeners to this program know it's only sometimes, Steve.
I have to tell you, talking about film critics. Okay, so I read Daniel. I'm reading the cover of the book. Daniel M. Kimmel, but Dan Kimmel, our buddy Dan. Mm-hmm. He wrote a book. I'll Have What She's Having. So I read the book this week. So decided to catch up on a couple of the films that he profiled in the book. One of them being Pillow Talk. So I go and I rent Pillow Talk, and lo and behold, there is Dan
doing the
DVD special features.
Yeah.
And that kind of I was like, holy shit! I have an all new respect. Well, no, I have a new respect because I didn't at any point in the past have a respect for Doris Day. But
I thought you were going to say Dan.
And Dan. The book is
watching
terrific.
Pillow Talk gave you respect for Doris Day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Pillow Talk and That Touch of Mink, and
did you go through the whole Doris Day catalog?
No, but I am going to be. I will admit that I have not seen Pillow Talk or the two films that follow it that she did with Rock Hudson. So I'm going to be seeing those. But also it was because oh God, what's his name? Andrew Sarris. Not a fan of Delbert Mann, who directed Pillow Talk, but Delbert Mann directed Marty, and he won an Academy Award for that.
Great movie.
Yeah, terrific film. So I was never really into going into Delbert Mann's films, but after reading Dan's book and his behind the scenes information on Pillow Talk, I was jazzed to see Pillow Talk. From a film theory perspective. I mean, it's about feminism. It's about relationships at that time. This is sort of like the early version of what is now the modern romantic comedy. It was a huge success in '59, and so I didn't so much watch it thinking that I was going to be so incredibly entertained, but it's more like a study, and it's all the more fascinating in that Rock Hudson would come out 20, 30 years later.
Yeah, he was a big romantic star back then.
The whole idea of what is known and what is not known about, what they're doing in this movie and what they can get away with in terms of innuendo, and it's fascinating. It really was. So Dan is in a couple of the featurette pieces on the disc, and the disc also has a great commentary by record producer Nick Redman, who has done many soundtracks for Perez Saraban, and Jeff Bond, who I believe used to edit Film Score Monthly, which a publication I had contributed some stuff to in the past, and then they had another girl who I can't remember her name, but she was very knowledgeable about the film. Rent it; it's worth it. I mean, it's hard for me to try to convince people to go see Polotok, because usually
you want to see it.
They scoff it off as like ephemera,
right?
But in truth, it's actually quite important, and it has been accepted.
It deserves.
It's in one of those preserved films by the Library of Congress,
and it deserves the 50th anniversary retrospective. They're giving it with this disc,
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have to follow the Doris Day passion you've developed all the way to stuff like Glass Bottom Boat or Pajama Game.
I haven't. I've got a whole lot of stuff to discover here.
Yeah.
Prior to this, I had seen That Touch of Mink and a couple other things that I don't recall the titles to, but Pillow Talk I hadn't.
Wow.
And so thanks, Dan.
And Doris.
Got me into it. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Doris. And Tony Randall.
He popped up in those things all the time.
He was a key member of what this was about. He really was. And I always liked Tony Randall, with The Odd Couple and stuff, but didn't like the movie Down with Love, though. Didn't like it.
Really?
No.
I don't think anyone did but me.
Production design-wise, loved it. But anyway, that was getting way off base.
Well, while you mentioned Down with Love, it's funny because I really enjoyed that movie.
Did you?
And I remember sitting there with the press at the screening and just feel the seething hate coming from critics near me as that movie went on.
I trashed it.
They just hated it.
And because of that, I was no longer invited to Fox press events for quite some time.
Wow.
I had done the
junket?
Yeah. Just did not. It didn't work out.
All right, so speaking of things you didn't think worked out, let's go on to our
We're going to continue that with
No Strings Attached.
No Strings Attached, which is this year's, in my opinion, this year's piece of ultimate effing junk. This is just abysmal that Ivan Reitman would lay this garbage upon us.
Wow.
The man has made crappy films for nearly 20 years now. I mean, I can just go down the list of shit. After Dave, there was Junior, Father's Day, 7 Days, 7 Nights, abysmal film. Evolution, My Super Ex-Girlfriend, and now No Strings Attached. So in Hollywood, you can have a couple of successes. In his case, he had some great successes in the 80s. It gives you 20 years of shit. Nearly.
Well, when he always dangles the carrot that he's going to make Ghostbusters 3, yeah.
This is a disjointed movie. This is a movie. Look at it this way: when you have a film that is produced by the actor, actors love waffly directors. Actors love directors they can influence, and when the actor is the producer, obviously they're influencing the direction of the film.
Do you think Ashton Kutcher had that kind of power over Ivan Reitman?
No, Natalie Portman. Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely. And this movie is, I know, Americans love linear storytelling and things going da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but this is just garbage.
I had the complete opposite reaction. I expected this to find garbage. First of all, I didn't know it was an Ivan Reitman film. I knew it was an Ashton Kutcher film. And I've sat through enough bad Ashton Kutcher movies, and the fact that it was opening in January made me think, this is going to be a stinker. And
it was.
I didn't think so. I thought it was entertaining.
This is a movie that has great scenes,
yes.
But it is not a great movie. Kevin Kline playing the piano, great scene. The scene with Lake Bell and Ashton Kutcher in his apartment, great scene. The scene with Greta Gerwig and her housemates in the house there. That is a very funny scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's an appalling scene. It's appalling that.
Why is it appalling?
Because it's disgusting.
What? What was disgusting about it?
The girls sitting around talking about
their periods. Well, if girls live together, they get on the same cycle, and that's
okay.
All right.
There's a broader subject there in that you can do certain things, and this comes in the week that I watched Pillow Talk.
All right.
So you're going from this.
No, I'm
this.
not. You are.
Well, hey. So let's take. Let me read the synopsis here. okay, No Strings Attached. In this comedy, Emma, Natalie Portman, and Adam, Ashton Kutcher, are lifelong friends who almost ruin everything by having sex one morning. In order to protect their friendship, they make a pact to keep their relationship strictly no strings attached. That means no jealousy, no expectations, no fighting, no flowers, no baby voices. It means they can do whatever they want in whatever public place they want, as long as they don't fall in love. So the question becomes, can you have sex without love getting in the way? And can their friendship survive? Obviously, the ending of the movie proves that point false, but...
Just going into that movie, you know that...
not false, but the answer to the question is no.
Not for these two. Now, you obviously didn't like Reitman's direction. Did you enjoy the performances from
No,
Cooper?
because he doesn't direct his actors. He gives them a framework, and it's like throwing a bunch of stuff into the mix. I swear to you, it's like the man doesn't even care.
I didn't get that at all. I didn't get that at all.
Absolutely disinterested in this movie. About when the last reel was kicking in, I know, which is even another, kick the hubris up a notch. Just when the last reel kicked in, I was like, oh my God, I got to sit through another 20 minutes of this.
Jeez, I thought it was. I thought there was good chemistry between Portman and Kutcher. I thought it was the best thing he's done in a while, except for a lot of Kutcher's direct-to-video movies, like Spread, where he plays a male hustler in L.A., and he did one with Catwoman.
Halle Berry?
No, the other Catwoman, Tim Burton Catwoman.
Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer. He did one with Michelle Pfeiffer where he's a college wrestler, straight to video, and he was good in both of them, but straight to video. Meanwhile, we get stuff like the one he did with the blonde chick, Katherine Heigl, which I didn't even see. But, it had stink waves coming off the poster. I wouldn't even go in.
Yeah.
But, so again, I had no expectations. I thought he was...
Oh, Killers.
Killer.
Right, yeah. There were two movies last year that benefited. I can't believe you got The Bounty Hunter and Killers. Two great titles. Nothing to do with the actual greatness.
No.
I mean, it just...
No, and two titles that I think were used in other movies.
Yeah.
Good movies.
Oh, yeah. Stanley Kubrick,
The Killers, yeah. I like the... I don't know. I wasn't blown away by it, but I was pleasantly surprised.
There are admittedly some entertaining scenes, but that, it's like lots of movies are just great scenes.
I guess
some directors that are great at directing great scenes.
Well, what did you expect more from this? You knew how it was
I didn't.
end.
I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. I on the verge. I was on the verge of just not even going. In fact,
So
Ed Simkus was going to come on the show, and Ed Simkus emailed me, and it says, I haven't and do not plan to see No Strings Attached.
I'm
reading into that a little bit. It's just such a disappointment. I mean,
well,
here on the other hand,
if you expected it to be shitty and it lived down to your
expectations. It was even worse than what I thought.
Yikes.
It was even worse. And I did have a little bit of an expectation because I thought that Ivan Reitman was supposed to do something. But this is a Natalie Portman influenced movie, right? This is a director who is not in control of his actors.
I don't know where you get that sense. This is going on.
He's not. This is basically.
Give me an example. How do you know?
Natalie Portman, the ebb and flow of the relationship didn't make sense to me. The fact that they thought that at some point that they had come to an agreement emotionally, and then after an edit they turn it around like all of a sudden there's a problem. The fact that Natalie Portman is a character in this movie who has no well-rounded life whatsoever. You can make the point, okay, she's a doctor, right? She's a doctor who works like 18 hours a day.
Right.
But we still know nothing about her. Nothing about her. This is something where she is a shell of a character.
Well, she's a control freak. You know that.
But then on the other hand, you know everything about the guy in the movie. You know how other women are interested in him. You know everything about his father, played by Kevin Kline. You know so much about his father that there's this interrelational subplot plot with his old girlfriend now being dated by Kevin Kline. Mm-hmm. But these things you know not of Natalie Portman. Is this the way romantic comedies are written? You know,
pretty much. I mean, when you've only got, everyone knows the destination this is going to. So I think his character's as thin or as well developed as her. They're about the same. They're just on this train going from point A to point D.
Then also you've got in these types of films you have the supporting characters, which to me this kind of like was reminiscent of About Last Night, where you've got the relationship between Rob Lowe and Demi Moore, and then you've got the
Jim Belushi,
James Belushi, and
that girl.
Not Elizabeth McGovern.
Elizabeth Taylor?
I forget her name. The Flintstones. Whatever.
Wilma?
Yeah.
Wilma. The Flintstones?
Yeah, and great supporting cast. So there's some terrific supporting, funny supporting friends situations.
But they're just distractions.
But that's all that is.
Yeah.
They're
padding out a half-hour plot, the whole thing.
Greta Gerwig with fine. I think the performance that I did enjoy in this film was Lake Bells as Ashton Kutcher. He's a I don't know what he does.
He's scientist.
He's like a production assistant or something on
a
music
Glee type show
or something, or some sort
it's
of
a TV show that kind of milks the Glee idea. It's high school singing stuff.
Yeah, and so there's a second assistant or an assistant director that has a crush on him. That
she's like the hot scientist.
Makes for a very hot scientist. Yeah, makes for a very funny scene later in the film in his apartment, and I laughed rarely during this film. I appreciated Kevin Kline's performance on the piano in the studio. That was neat. And then these few scenes at what's his name's Ashton Kutcher's Adam's apartment. But other than that, this was a completely disjointed film and so representative of the fact that Ivan Reitman is just going along for the paycheck. This is a movie where he's taking a ride. It was a very lackadaisical film. Nothing. Talking about a guy that doesn't have any bite. There's nothing.
But does this comedy need bite?
No, this is fluff. I'm going to quote a girl who sat near me in the movie. And when we were walking out, she said this is a movie for perverts.
For perverts?
A movie for perverts.
Why?
Because you get to see Natalie Portman talk dirty and screw around.
I don't think that's what the movie's about, and I don't think there's a lot more, and I've been known for my perverted taste in movies.
So you know what I think? Go for it.
No,
They also tried to make her out to be something that she genuinely is not. There's a line in this movie where Ashton Kutcher says, "You know what you are? You're a female Rick Moranis."
That's a throwaway line. That's
absolutely, maybe Ivan Reitman threw that in because he was throwing away a line towards Rick Moranis, who retired like 13 years ago.
How many people going to see this even know who Rick Moranis is?
Nobody would have thought that about her character. This is a character. That is representative as to why this character, him, Adam, thinks that of her. When the audience, that would be the furthest thing from their mind.
You are putting so much emphasis on a throwaway line of dialogue.
No, I'm just saying that's just an example of how the characters are speaking lines that aren't really actually representative of what we're seeing.
Like
we feel these characters are.
No, I thought it was a joke. It wasn't meant to be a description of her character. It was a throwaway.
It's just
line.
One example. But this is a disjointed movie.
For you. Again, I was surprisingly entertained by what I thought was going to be an awful experience. Like the chemistry. I didn't expect it to go any new territory, and it didn't. But I enjoyed the ride. I liked Kutcher, and I thought there was good chemistry between them. I didn't think it was for pervs. I don't know where. I think that woman needs some help. If she thinks this is for pervs, we should. Do you know who that is? Do you know her?
Yeah.
Can we get her a copy of Enter the Void?
Yeah. Oh, right.
Then I'll show you a movie for pervs.
We can beg to differ on this one. I don't think Ivan Reitman has done anything for such a long time.
Like I said, I didn't know it was an Ivan Reitman movie. I was surprised when the credit came up.
This is the guy, man, that I loved who did Stripes, who did Ghostbusters.
Right.
The guy who directed Meatballs. And now I'm thinking, wow, those movies were Bill Murray type. Yeah, maybe it was Bill Murray who was the real success of all those those three films. Maybe that was the magic to Reitman's
You can say
success.
the same thing about John Landis with his recent movies that never even make it into theaters.
Yeah.
They were all young, hungry directors at the time.
Yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. Like, he was supposed to do something edgy, and graphic sex doesn't make something edgy.
It wasn't even that graphic.
But this is an R-rated romantic comedy, so I guess there's something that's a rarity in and of itself, I suppose. But at the same time, I think that they were trying to do something edgy, and it didn't work.
Well, besides a gratuitous butt shot, there wasn't any nudity per se. It's more for language and adult situations, I would think, than anything perverted. But this is a
movie for perverts.
No. If you ever see her again, introduce me to her. I'll give her a copy of Enter the Void. But this is it's funny because this theme of non-committed sex or sex without commitment is going to be popping up in at least 3 other movies now. Weekend Pass by the Farrelly brothers, where guys can go out, their wives give them a weekend to go out and have sex with whoever they want with no consequences. Friends with Benefits with Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. Same kind of thing. There's this strange theme popping up in a few movies in a row that just seems odd that, is this the way we're thinking now? Is this the way...
I'm led to wonder, where's the decision? Is it something that the man wants, or is it something that the woman now, in the advancement of, the sexual revolution, is this what she wants now?
But all these movies show us that it's something we don't deserve or we can't handle.
Did Sex in the City somehow influence the whole idea of fuck buddies? And so now we basically have fuck buddy movies?
I don't know. But it's just odd that there's 3 in a row.
This was actually kind of discussed already in When Harry Met Sally.
I pretty much want to sleep with them too.
Maybe not the act, but the thought of it, the whole idea of can you really be, or maybe it's taken it up a notch to can you really be friends with a woman? Can you really be friends with a woman, have sex with that woman, and not like her?
Well, that's the I think that's where they think they're being edgy, but they're not. Because we all know that no one's going to, if someone made a movie where people did have sex and there were no romantic entanglements and it just went on like this and they were happy, that would be edgier than this thing, which or all these movies. I guarantee you, I haven't even seen Hall Pass or Friends with Benefits.
But you know what history says in these types of movies? No.
Right. It's not going to work. Right.
And so you're just waiting for the crack.
Instead of
we're waiting for that agreement to crack, not waiting.
Well, well, instead of being perverted, this is actually prudish, because they have to. In a movie, this comedy has to end with them falling in love.
It was so awkward.
Because otherwise, you can't. Everything else is. That's where it becomes perverted. All this other extramarital or extracurricular activity, thematically, it has to end in them falling in love and having a quote-unquote normal romance. And that's the prudery, not the pervertedness of this. And on that note, I think I'll end.
Okay, I was just going to say, if you think this is one of the better things Ashton Kutcher has done, that's not saying much.
Yeah. No, it's not saying much. He's not a good actor.
Oh, I thought you were going to say hot.
No. He's not. Although the ladies did applaud his ass. I'm not sure if it was his. It could have been a stunt, but we don't know. But let's just agree to disagree on this one. And I think we can agree on the next one, depending on if we do Beautiful. I don't know how you think about Beautiful, but you want to do Mike Leigh's movie?
Yeah, Another Year. Mike Leigh. Let me read the right up here. The newest film from Mike Leigh. Master of in-depth characterization is cause for celebration. Of course, this is written by the publicist.
Can you tell?
Another Year is a touching and beautifully nuanced drama in the year in the life of a happily married middle-aged couple and the less well-adjusted people who gather around them. Little seems to happen, but much does. Leigh's regulars Jim Broadbent and Ruth Sheen play Tom and Jerry, a warm, affable couple. Tom is a geological engineer. Jerry is a medical counselor. They like to tend to their garden in the public allotment and enjoy having friends over for a meal. One of the regular guests, Mary, played by Leslie Manville, is a lonely co-worker of Jerry's who hits the bottle and hits on the wrong guys for romance. She's he's attracted to Tom, Jerry's adult but much younger son Joe, not knowing that he's brought his new girlfriend home to meet the parents. Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think the standout performance here right away, I want to say, is Leslie Manville. She's terrific.
Yeah, and
terrific.
You know, you talk about a director in control of his subject.
Yes.
Mike Leigh.
I respect this guy so much.
Just that ending shot, the last shot, which is just a steady hold on, what was her character's name? On Mary?
Jerry.
No, Mary.
Oh,
last shot. Their friend Mary.
Yeah, Mary,
Manville.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the last shot is just this long, agonizing shot on this woman as the light, you know, as the party or the dinner party goes on around her, and it just focuses on her and then goes to blood.
But we also say that, like, I don't think that by saying that there's this, everybody's talking about this ending shot in another year is not giving away the movie.
No.
Because let's not explain what goes into it. But that he ended the movie with this shot was really cool.
Yeah,
because it was so, like,
it's ballsy.
It just tears you up on the inside, you know? I mean, Kubrick did this. You know, these long sort of slow zoom-ins that give you the very uncomfortable feeling that there's something inside this person that they can't quite figure out, or perhaps, in Kubrick's case, if they're staring out from underneath their eyebrow, something demented.
Right.
And here's a woman that is just imploding, and that final shot was really, really telling. But
the whole movie, though, is filled with moments like that, where, again, you know, you talked about Reitman not being in control. Liz Lee, who, you know, you can argue that not a lot, like the publicist said in her preview, not a lot happens, but a lot happens. These people just kind of weave in and out of each other's lives over dinner parties or mainly around food and drink. Lots of drinking in this movie.
Yeah.
Desperate, gulping, gotta get drunk, gotta get out of my own skin kind of drinking. But not from Tom and Jerry, who, you know, even though they don't have the showiest roles in this.
Jim Broadbent?
Yeah, and Ruth Sheen.
Right.
So Jim Broadbent and Ruth Sheen are this happily married couple. I mean, literally happily married. You know they've had some trouble along the way, that every couple does, but they're middle-aged, they're set in a routine, they love each other. It's a very calm, pleasant center that these other disasters
it is. It's
around.
Like a, you know, they seem to have the steady relationship.
Yeah.
And all the garbage goes on around them.
But then also not, you know, they're not holding themselves as examples. They give good advice to other people.
But you have to wonder after a year how this wears on them, how things go around.
More on me.
Is it monotonous? But you know, with Mike Leigh's movies, and especially with this one, they're like, you know, a collection of, you know, entertaining nuancical things, gesticulations, things that you can't write. You know, just the way the characters respond to each other that he builds, cultivates in his rehearsal sessions long before they film, and then while they're filming, you know, they improvise in a way, but
he's also, that's where I think his directing really comes across, and he wrote the script too, but his directing is he has the confidence in his actors to let the camera stay still. You know, it can just focus on a conversation between two people.
That is a big mistake that a lot of Hollywood films make, is that they don't sit on a character with one shot for a number of seconds, because there's an anticipation in the audience, and when the camera sits, special effects guys know this, I've said it before, when the camera stays on a subject for longer than 8 seconds, the mind begins to find faults with it. So when Mike Leigh has these long shots on his characters or extended scenes, we in our heads start to break these things apart. That's just what the mind does.
Right.
And so Mike Leigh lets us stew.
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick let us stew. That's what was so unnervingly great about it. You know.
So even if it's just, you know, Tom talking to his I guess a college friend or whatever, but that big drunken slob of a guy.
He certainly has some sort of an
this guy
problem.
Do we have his information?
I don't think so.
It's this friend of Tom's who shows up at the house, and he stays a day or stays overnight, and the guy just watching him eat and drink at the table.
He's swallowing all of his hurt.
Everything. And then they go outside, and he's like, and Tom's like, well, why don't we go take a weekend off and go someplace? And the guy's like, no, I can't do that. And he's just getting drunker and drunker, and it's just they're really uncomfortable scenes, but I think it's uncomfortable because it's raw. There's so much raw emotion and humanity in these scenes. And, I'm listening to myself talking and going, no, people are never going to see this and think it's going to be a mess. No, there's lots of humor in these things. Not laugh out loud funny stuff, but there's the humor of just being alive. When Mary gets her driver's license, God forbid, and she's trying to drive. Just little moments of humanity here that bubble through as very funny, but not.
She may well get a Best Supporting Actress nomination if Mila Kunis doesn't get a freebie for Black Swan. She's so great. She's
compare
like
the two.
Just
did Mila Kunis do anything compared to this?
No, no. It was good casting. But here it's like she's walking this tightrope. She's like just ready to fall apart at any moment, and we seem to catch her at the moments where she comes into Tom and Jerry's lives to try and get back to where she wants to be. Mm-hmm. But the movie is sort of in a way it's like her movie, even though she's a supporting character. It's her slow dissension, her slow falling apart. And if anybody says there's really not much going on in this movie, just really pay attention to what the characters are doing.
There's more in there's a scene where
even on the sides of the frame.
Yeah, this is in the opening part. Mary works at the same medical clinic as Jerry, and they go out for a drink after work.
Right.
And just the way they sit there and talk is, like there's something. You got a feeling something more is going on, and then Mary sees an older gentleman or a guy, middle-aged guy at the bar, and she starts automatically fantasizing that if when Jerry leaves, this guy's going to come over and sweep her away.
She's saying desperate without saying desperate, but you get to interpret this.
Yeah, her fantasy life is too rich for her. Mm. Again, she sees the way she fixates on their son, who she watched grow up, and she's suddenly in her mind they're already married and happily ever after, and no one has an idea this is going on except outside of Mary's head.
Yeah, there's that. Well, we as the audience do. And I like what Mike Leigh does. He's like he gives us this puzzle, and we have to put it all together in a way, and maybe we won't by the end of the movie, but it's fascinating to see these pieces connect, and there are comfortable characters, and then there are characters with after this funeral scene. There's her nephew, cousin. It's like, God, you just don't know if someone's going to fly off the wall or blow off the hinges, but somehow they seem to keep it together, like relationship wise. That maybe that's the thing between Tom and Jerry. So, maybe other people are trying to figure out what it is between you two that makes it. That hasn't.
There's a jealousy
cracked.
there too. Why are you so happy and I'm so miserable? And the thing is, the way the movie's structured, and like you said, because so much of it really does take place in our heads because of that 8-second rule and other things that are going on. I'll bet this movie, it's a different experience for me than it is for you, and I'll bet it's a different experience the second time you see it.
Probably. I think I was
different details.
Afterward, I was very impressed with the production design. Like you had Tom's brother who lost his wife, and Tom's brother, the way he lives in this bleak apartment house.
Yeah.
But then Tom himself, Jerry, they live in this colorful suburban house. It's very bright and open and very comforting. Whereas, the other end of his other side, his family just lived in bleakness.
Yeah, and Tom and Jerry and
where
gardeners.
Does this come from? Is it luck, or did they cultivate this kind of?
I think cultivates a theme. They have a garden. They raise vegetables.
I thought this was a metaphor
feeding
for what's
people.
going on.
People come to Tom and Jerry's house for food and drink. Mm-hmm. They don't ever go, when they go to the brother's wife's funeral, they bring food. Mm-hmm. They bring drink. They're very nurturing that way. But they never ask for anything in return. It's just the kind of people they are. And that nurturing focus is between them too, when they're in bed alone, just like talking over the day. Or there's that little nurturing that goes on between Tom and Jerry too, that's a give and take.
Yeah, and then you have to wonder if they ever did have a tiff, whether they'd be able to, are people waiting for them to have a fallout or something like that?
Yeah, probably.
Can't say. but they have a very strong relationship. So it's another year in their relationship.
And on a personal note, as someone who's been sober for 15 years, this movie was very tough to sit through.
Really?
The way they drink, the desperation they have around alcohol, the people outside of the, Tom and Jerry like their cocktails too.
Yeah,
but and then,
when Mary goes for that extra bottle of wine, or not stopping with just the one or a little, and
right.
Wow.
I can have one, that's all right. She's driving.
She's convincing herself.
Yeah, she gives herself that excuse that it was just tough to sit through.
It's a terrific film.
Yep.
Opens at the Coolidge, I think, this week. I saw. Well, you know what? I take that back. I don't know exactly. It says coming soon on their website. So check. Yeah, check Coolidge.org and definitely see another year. So let's move on to picks of the week.
Yes. Me first?
Go for it.
All right. I usually don't recommend to see, when a movie gets remade, I don't really like to see the original first, or tell people about the original. But The Mechanic comes out next week with Jason Statham and that guy.
That guy.
Anyway, the original was
Tom Cruise. That guy.
No, not
me.
Tom
It's that
Cruise.
guy.
Yeah,
I'm that guy.
It's the original was a Charles Bronson movie with Jan Michael Vincent from the 80s, and it's people have somehow forgotten about Charles Bronson. They always talk about there's Schwarzenegger, there's Bruce Willis, there's Stallone.
Charles Bronson is someone I am intent to rediscover. I'm going to throw this out there. Also, Jerry Lewis, whom I'm beginning to think is a master filmmaker. Believe it or not,
I have a ton of Jerry Lewis movies. I'm a huge fan.
Man, I am eager to see The Butler, or the Bellhop. The Bellhop. The one I think that he plays the Bellhop in 1960.
Yeah,
Miami Hotel.
Zingers.
Yeah, definitely want to see that with Milton Berle. But anyway, they've recently published these essays. I forget the company on Charles Bronson's films.
Yeah,
like Death Wish and stuff like that. So I thought, I really got to read up on
use The Mechanic as a springboard to rediscover Charles Bronson. Death Wish. You don't have to go to Death Wish 4. Just get the original Death Wish. Get the Valachi Papers. Watch him in. He was in The Great Escape. He was in Once Upon a Time in the West. He was in all these movies.
Some great early flicks.
Yeah, he's a good actor, and in The Mechanic he plays a hitman who gets hired to kill people. So either it looks like an accident or it sends a message or whatever. But it's funny because at the time I remember I was such a Bronson fan. It was like I went to see everything he was in. And this one he's a killer who likes classical music. And he has all these little quirks about him that, Bronson brought a lot to the role. And, the action was good. The ending's amazing. Jan Michael Vincent is a jerk, but that's fine. But Bronson gives a good performance, and I just think if there's enough out there about the new Mechanic coming out. I don't know if it's a remake. I don't know if they're going to follow the same story, whatever. But I just watched The Mechanic, and I think see that, and then turn, as much as some people might explore Doris Day, it's time to explore Charles Bronson.
The things I have learned from Doris Day. And Charles Bronson.
Yeah. Charles Bronson was way ahead of his time as far as, he was just a fun actor, so that'd be my pick.
Cool. This time, man, I am going for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Season 4, Volume 2 is what I've been watching, and I loved Land of the Giants. I'm a fan of Irwin Allen. I liked the whole idea of big budget disaster filmmaking, that he did in the 70s, and some of my earliest memories of watching TV were episodes of Land of the Giants. I just was fascinated by it, and as I grew a little older, I came to know that there was this other series, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which I was a few years too late for. I was born in 65. The show aired from 64 to 68. So I've been rediscovering it.
So I was 5 years old and I was already a fan. I'm 64.
I loved it. I loved what I've seen. Yeah. I had seen a couple of episodes, and I was just fascinated by the whole idea in a way. This is like Star Trek before Star Trek. Star Trek, at the bottom of the sea.
Right.
It's with who is it? Richard Basehart and
Admiral Nelson.
Yeah.
And who played Commander Crane? That's what I'm looking for on the notes. David Hedison.
Yeah, David Hedison. So I've been watching watching it and digging it. It's so bad in some parts.
Yeah,
it's just like basically, they have these fantasy episodes where, there's an appearance from like Blackbeard where he can just appear and reappear and take over the ship and turn people into pirates. And then
dive, and everyone has to lean this way.
Oh, there's in each episode like 10 minutes without interruption. 10 minutes in, there is everybody leaning to one side and sparks flying out of the
That's where Star Trek got the idea.
Random gunplay in the submarine. Nobody's worried about
pressure. No problem.
But what I really enjoyed about this particular set was, on the last disc, there's a third disc, there is they have the complete, I guess it was the unaired, it was the original airing of the first episode of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea from 1964. And the guys that produced the CD, the DVD set, got this original print from Irwin Allen's wife, who's still alive. She's in her mid-80s. And
single.
He died, I guess, in the mid-80s. I forget.
How is the original...
Well, what's neat about this is that, of course, they disclaim it at the beginning, say this is an original. It was filmed in color, but it was actually broadcast in black and white. And I believe it stars Eddie Albert from Green Acres as master diver sergeant. And they introduced the whole setup for the show. The fact that their secret submarine base is somewhere near San Francisco, and it's 500 feet below the surface at some secret dock. And then there's like some sort of secret bad guy organization whose name I don't recall, but there's you don't see the guy from the front. He's a bald head, the guy sitting in a big chair. Obviously, there's like some James Bond sort of bad guy. But what's neat about it is, so she gave them this print, unrestored. It has all the original commercials from 1964, from beginning to end, plus the station breaks. So you were just like there. Yeah. The ambiance of it is terrific. That's the real gem. It was watching that unedited broadcast. And then they have another. They have the another, I believe, edited the full version of that in color, which is the original. The original aired pilot and then the original unaired pilot.
Right.
Anyway. But,
series was in black and white, though, right? Or is it in color?
It became. It was very much publicized as being in color. I think by '65 they were doing them in color.
People don't realize shows like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, shows like Gilligan's Island was black and white when it first started.
Sure, it's like in the credits they say in color.
In color, it was a big deal. This is funny. I'm glad you brought this up because it's also like Richard Basehart and David Hedison. I knew them as the guys from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and then you'd see them like Richard Basehart has a huge career. David Hedison was Felix Leiter in one of the Bond movies.
Yeah.
They keep popping up and always like, oh, there's the guy from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. They were never anything but that to me.
Yeah, I remember a Mad magazine in the 60s. I remember a Mad magazine called a parody called Voyage to See What's Down There. But this is so I've watched 4 episodes. Really digged it because it makes me want to watch Land of the Giants again. And then you brought up Time Tunnel.
Yeah,
it's another show that I dig, not as much as Land of the Giants. Land of the Giants freaked me out. Man, I just loved it. But Time Tunnel, I recently picked up the CD soundtrack to it. I want to rediscover that. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, man. I just love the fucking miniatures.
Oh, they're great.
And then the spaceship, the flying ship
good.
that launches from the from the bottom of the from like aft
underneath.
Yeah, it was so cool.
My show from this time period would be Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I actually got the Suitcase complete series for Christmas a couple years ago.
Oh, that's pricey.
And it's amazing. A lot of these shows from my childhood, I'm like, oh, I remember that show, and I go and I'll get it on DVD, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I wasted time watching this. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Land of the Giants, F Troop. Those shows hold up. But when I go back and see, I don't know, those other crappy shows back then, they just don't hold up, even though I'm sure I watched them, diligently when they were on. But yeah, I would recommend that too, and I haven't found my pick.
Yeah, I'm starting on season 4 here, and I kind of regret it. I want to go back and there's some great extra features on the other discs that I want to check out. So Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, it's new on DVD. Definitely check it out, and I think that is the show.
That's it.
Unless there's something else you can think of.
No. I want to encourage old perverts. People to write into us at
hostmoviepodcast@gmail.com, and we've actually got a Bluehost account with these other email addresses that I got to get that shit together. But anyway, for the time being, it's still hostmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And good news for us, we had that one negative review removed from iTunes.
Yay.
I petitioned and got it removed because basically the guy was just flaming, whatever.
Yeah.
If you have the time, we would certainly appreciate it. If you could leave us a review on iTunes, that would be most fantastic. Anything helps. And listen to our shows online. We're at post-movie.net. All the shows are up there. We're also on Facebook. So I can't think of anything else.
That's a shame.
And that is the show. So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everyone.